Hello.
So good to see you. Yay. Mm.
Good afternoon, everyone. Aloha. Take a minute if you like to see who's here with us today. Mm, We hope everyone's doing well and look forward to sitting together for a little while. Mm, mm. What do you think, Michelle? Should we get started?
Yes.
All right, cool. Mm. So just, taking a few moments, get settled into your seated posture. You come to let the eyes close. It's like a whole different orientation toward the body starts to happen. We're really experiencing it more from the inside. And of course, it's significant shift also in terms of sounds, visual impression, our relationship to the world around us. Not shutting it out or shutting it off, but coming into this more receptive relationship with experience, not as much asserting ourselves onto the world. This period of receiving, listening, exploring, trying to understand sensations on their own terms, not just through our ideas about them. So we find some posture of relative stability, relative comfort, relative stillness, not expecting perfection or consistency, really. We know that the sensations are always changing, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral quality comes and goes outside of our control. More or less ease with holding the body upright, but we settle in as best we can. receiving sensations throughout the body, noticing the mind's tendency to name, identify in ways that are familiar, not fighting that, but also seeing to what degree we can let those ideas and perceptions come and go, and begin to receive physical sensations on their own terms. Sensations we might label as pressure, movement, lightness, hardness, softness, tingling, throbbing, moisture, dryness, heat, cold, always moving, always changing, but at this single point of present moment arising and passing, can watch each in its turn, notice it, perhaps recognize some quality. It's passing away, a new moment of sensation arising and passing on its own, moment after moment. Nothing to do or shift or change, nothing to get, to manipulate, to get rid of. Bodily sensations arising and passing out of our awareness. The awareness itself arising and passing. The heart looks for something more stable, more secure, and notice that wanting or agitation or longing, the conjuring of a sense of me, mine, myself, the kind of platform. No problem. This too evaporates each moment. Sometimes it can be helpful to open the attention to the field of sound, the rising and passing of tones, vibrations, textures, also with their quality of physicality in a way. reverberating at the ear door, coming and going the same way. Of course, if we are using the body as our primary anchor, we can narrow that field where the hands are touching, or the area around the abdomen where the breath can be noted as a gentle rising and falling sensation without control, manipulation, just receiving. And trusting no matter where we look, whether it is the breath, the hands, the whole body seated, the stream of sound, the stream of mind, knowing, thinking. The lessons are the same. Conditioned phenomena arising, passing away. The mind, heart longing for greater security, stability, clinging, rejecting, fantasizing, and eventually coming back into relationship with the truth. To be fathomed wherever we look. Thanks, everyone. Nice to sit together. So we have some time this afternoon to take some questions if anyone has any about your practice, instructions. I know a number of folks have just come off of retreat and spent a week back in their world and lives, and perhaps there's questions around that. Anything that we might be able to be helpful with. And the best way to let us know that you have a question is at the bottom of the screen. You can click on the raise hand button if you move your mouse around, and we'll see that you have a question. Or you can type into the chat to me that you have a question. I can call on you. Or you can wave your actual hand, and we'll tend to see that as well. And so yeah, if anyone has a question, let us know. Hey, Layla.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Um, so I actually just came off of a retreat today. Um, and it was good and it was hard. I think it's they are. Um, the I think the hardest part for me was I felt like the leaders did a ton of talking, and I went into the retreat hoping for silence, at least some silence. And we had some silence. But so the times when we did do silent sits were like a big relief to me. Just felt really good. Um, and I I think I always like silent sits, but I think it was maybe even more so in contrast to all the talking that the leaders were doing. And so yesterday morning, during our morning silent sit, um, I decided to sit with the group in the meditation hall instead of bundling up in multiple layers to go sit outside on the deck. And um, that sit was wonderful. And it's the first time this has happened to me. Um, I didn't feel any discomfort in my body. My body just felt like it was just kind of full of a calm energy. And um, I felt all the other meditators, all the other yogis in the room, just felt really good energy in the room. And I started grinning and I was like smiling all the way through breakfast. And it was really wonderful. And I think even as it was happening, I was kind of hearing you guys say, and don't expect this to happen all the time. And because immediately I'm like, ooh, this is so cool. I hope this happens again. But so I guess I'm just wondering, like, is is this something similar that happens to other people? What is it called? What
You're the only one, so.
And it only happens if you sit through a week of talking, lots
yeah.
of talking.
So, yeah, so I think I've heard you guys talk about you have these moments of really wonderful sits, and I think you have a word for it, but I couldn't remember what it was. I don't know if that's like touching on equanimity, or it just it wasn't ecstatic. It was just lovely, just calm and so nice. And so
That's
yeah.
really great. Yeah. Michelle, you want to start?
Good. I mean, I think it's definitely happens to everybody unless you're fully enlightened. And um, it points to so clearly that in this practice, we're emphasizing that it doesn't matter what the experience is at all, right? But it depends on how we're relating to it. So this is an example of one of the things that's very hard for human beings to relate to without getting attached. And
Yeah.
one, I can offer you a few things that can be helpful because it's practice, right? You have to practice going through it over and over again. And it was good. You had that, you had that thought that came like, well, this is what they've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
That's great. That's the bit, that opening up of like questioning and wondering and wisdom, because it's all around. We have this wishful thinking that it's permanent, and then we have many experiences that we wish were not right? It's like, and so. There are different things to try when it happens again, because it will, and one of them is agreement. So it's like, of course we want it to happen again. That's what one of the reasons we practice is to cultivate the seven factors of awakening and um, the non-reactive mind. Usually what feels the most wonderful to us is when we're peaceful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, and so that's equanimity. We taste this. We're not fighting with thought. We're not fighting with body sensations. We're not. It's like that peace is such a relief. There's aspects of practice that are a relief, but we recognize it as something that we want so much for everybody on the planet. We want it. It's so deep in us. Because we recognize it as possible. In those moments, we know it's possible, and it's so powerful. And it's hard to get the gumption to start noticing, liking. So, what
Yeah.
has actually happened, technically, what has happened is that the equanimity has gone when we start missing that we're liking it. So it's
Mm,
And the reason that's hard is because we actually don't want to face the fact that we've actually started reacting. We're so attached to the equanimity, we don't really want to muster the effort to start going, oh, liking, because that is how you recover the equanimity, because it's the liking that's happening in the present moment. If there's enough mindfulness and equanimity in practice, you let that liking be totally okay, and you can be mindful of it, and it will be, that liking is impermanent. But it takes a lot of practice because often this is like riding a bike. And when we don't notice that we can be mindful of the liking, then we're starting to veer into enjoyment. And this doesn't mean that those experiences are bad or wrong. It means that we've identified with them as mine or me or I. So and then we have another chance. It's like, oh, enjoyment. I was hoping I would get identified with enjoyment, right? Like there has to be some level of mindfulness and equanimity, as well as often some humor, because we take this very personally.
Mhm.
Because this is our peak experience. This is our treasure. This is really, no, 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 no. This is really what I want. Sorry, right? Like this is so, it just, that pack rat, that hoarder comes in and just gets so identified. And so you've gone from heaven to hell in a way. You've gone from not being identified and reacting at all to like, wow.
Mhm.
It's just this, it's like a hook. You're a fish, the hook comes down and you just latch onto it. And it's so bittersweet and it's so painful. So yes, that happens to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I was able to, and even as I was hearing your voices as it was happening, and I was hearing you say, don't get attached. This is, it's not going to be like this all the time. But that didn't make it go away. Like I
That's
still,
because you were attached. I mean, that's the thing. This is foolproof. Equanimity, the presence of equanimity and mindfulness is foolproof. So that what I'm saying is you missed the liking. You missed being mindful of the liking. By the time this
um,
happens really fast. By the time you probably had that thought, you were probably missing the enjoyment. You were you were probably attached, or you wouldn't have noticed it. That could have happened in 3 seconds. That's how fast this stuff happens.
so I was still enjoying it, but at the same time, also hearing your
Right,
voices.
but
Yeah.
what you're missing is that you were identified with the enjoyment, but you were remembering that perhaps this could have been worked with more skillfully, right? Like you can't command not being attached. You can't have that thought and say, "Oops, I don't want to be attached to this," because what we're not doing is we're not having equanimity with um, attachment. We're having aversion to the attachment.
Mm.
That's 4 seconds. No, I'm not. This is how
Yeah.
fast it goes.
Yeah.
That's how much we like the equanimity. We like it so much that we do not want to be attached to it because it
Hmm.
feels terrible. You've gone from feeling wonderful to feeling miserable.
But I didn't feel miserable.
What did you feel?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jesse. Yeah. I'm just trying to point out that,
I'm just saying. I think
let me
a
just
little
say,
bit. Layla's describing a little bit of a different kind of chain of events, but ultimately,
yeah,
it's what
it,
Michelle is saying is
it's the extreme that happens. You might not feel miserable at the time, but the attachment does not feel good. And that's why you even had the thought. You heard our voices saying, watch out for being attached to this, right? And go ahead, Jesse. I mean, I'm
she's just
giving,
saying that she had that thought as she was still enjoying it. That's all. It's
Yeah.
anyway. It takes it happened in a slightly, I think, a little bit different time
yeah,
frame, but ultimately it just dissipate,
yeah.
right? And yeah,
As
and then this,
expected.
yeah,
Because I mean, I'm not going to stay that way forever, right? It was, it happened and everything changes and yeah, everything's impermanent. So I had that for a little bit and it's impermanent and hopefully maybe it'll come up again sometime, but
It's impersonal. So when
yeah.
mindfulness and equanimity come into balance, it'll appear again.
Okay.
Totally, it'll come back, but not when you are commanding it to come back,
Right.
because that's just wanting, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's this is great. I mean, this is great practice. This is how you develop peace. That's how you get free.
Yeah. Thanks.
yeah. I'm not sure how much more to add, really. I think just everything, maybe just to highlight some of that piece of what Michelle's saying of like, this is, first of all, it's wonderful. And it's like to know that this is possible, to have an experience like that. It is, it's, I mean, the impact is hard. You can't even, the experience itself, the intensity of it, may come and go. And we can find ourselves in a pit of despair and, a couple of days later or moments later. But something something about that, the impact is very profound, to know that our minds are capable of that, right? This isn't just some fantasy or something people, maybe experience, right? No, that what you experience, it's very pure, it's very beautiful. And the work that it does on us. And that, of course, there's, sometimes when you have something so kind of pure feeling happen, there often is a sort of counter experience, kind of internally, it's just part of the process. So that sense that Michelle is saying of like the practice is not one about getting back to that and just
Right.
stabilizing it for longer and longer and longer. Uh, that it is an understanding of like, oh, well, what are the conditions that lead to the settling in, the releasing, what happens then, the contracting of the mind, and a lot of the practice is just this kind of watching the sort of opening and closing, the acceptance and contraction of the heart over time, and that sense that the equanimity only develops more and more when the contraction isn't a problem, and that is like a very kind of paradoxical thing to sort of integrate into our systems. But the sense of like, oh, when there's anger, when there's wanting, when there's despair, that is, it's actually still the acceptance of that and the equanimity with that leads towards the deepening capacity for equanimity to arise, right? um, Rather than thinking, oh, this is the sort of the opposite of what's supposed to be happening. Not that you're saying that, but I'm just it's a it's a kind of classical sort of conundrum that we get into. So I think well, it's like wonderful to have one sitting like that, to have a whole sitting, and then to have it last longer, and like kind of be out and about, like feeling good, and
Yeah.
feeling light, and I think the other thing is like it may not have just sort of dropped away, and it may not have turned into kind of grasping right away, but like actually something to sort of reflect on, or it's like that each moment is different. So whatever was happening during the sitting, and then the moments of enjoyment later, they might have been very different. They, one might have been might have been more equanimity in the sitting and more joy or something after the sitting, right? And to also
Yeah.
distinguish those things of like, oh, those are
Mm,
actually different mind states. Those are actually different kind of mental factors, both beautiful, both, but then we start to also see sometimes like an arc of experience and identification and attachment and non-attachment, all these things, we start to see a little bit of sometimes like an arc of how these things play out. And some of it's general, some of it is more kind of personal in terms of our systems, but it's wonderful. And I mean, and of course I was joking, but who can know? I mean, I think why, different teachers are going to have their methods and their styles, and there's kind of rationale for that. And any of one of us will be more or less, it'll resonate with us or not, But and we're not ones to say, put yourself in a really difficult container all the time, just in order to kind of do that, like to get through your resistance or something. On the other hand, there is something interesting in that, right? That like you're kind of like the sort of like kind of growing sort of aspect of resistance or frustration, or um, we'll, we'll just say resistance, and then at some point, kind of that moving through that, that dropping out,
mhm.
that letting go, and whatever the conditions, mysterious as they are, that kind of led to that, it's also something worth watching, whether it's upon reflection now or next time this sort of stuff happens. It's like, where did that arc start, and where does that, where does, sometimes there is a place where the mind can, I don't want to overstate the sense of kind of like crisis around it, but sometimes there is something about a certain kind of internal pressure around disliking or wanting, and that you have that the mind will release from at some point. So it's interesting that it happened in that container,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, you'll see what works for you in terms of style and teaching method and all that.
Yeah, I'm definitely I I'd like to do some in person, but um what what I'd really like to do is find a way to do your retreats in a supported place. It's not that easy for me to do it at home, but um or even solo, just do a solo silent retreat. Sounds, I mean, I don't know, maybe I would get there and not like it, but it sounds good to me.
Well,
Um,
it's good to get to know what works for you. You can't do that without experimenting and
right.
exploring. So that sounds good. I can laugh about this now, but there's a teacher at IMS who's no longer alive, but this teacher would talk through every sitting, and plus you had to walk with her, and she talked. You had to walk with her, and she talked through all the walking, and it was definitely not my style, but no. Um, it turned out that there are people that loved it.
Oh yeah.
There were people that really hated it, and we had to figure out a way. In the old days, you had brochures. We didn't even have online. We'd make brochures, and for that teacher to describe the course, we said, if you prefer continuous guidance,
Uh,
this is a really good course. And you see that was not trying to make it a problem. It's just that
right.
some people actually really loved it, and I was the type that didn't. I made it through it, and I loved her dearly, but it was so good for me to see that, just that,
Yeah.
that really helped some people's practice a lot.
The other people in the retreat absolutely loved
Yeah.
the guidance. Yeah, for sure. And actually, there were probably only three or four of us there who were kind of struggling with it. But and I knew at the time too, I was like, okay, this is, I'm having a version, and like I told them in the first like little small group discussion on basically the first full day, and I said, I'm having a version to this program. And it's like I'm owning it.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, didn't this person, when you were like fuming internally and they called you out in the hall? That's a good line. It's important.
She also did public shaming with me, which was not that exciting either. But she, oh, wow, I hit so many peak experiences of rage during that. I think they're the opposite of equanimity. And I went and I was sitting in front of her. I took my week off for the whole year at IMS to do this retreat. So it was also like, oh my God, what a mistake. I thought I had made some mistake. But I was sitting there, and really partway through the sitting, she said, Michelle, Michelle. And I'm like, oh no, not again, because she had done it a number of times. And she said, what is not what you want to get? That was, and that was really powerful. That really, really taught me so much. It
Yeah.
really helped me a lot. So, sometimes you get nailed, and it's good. I wouldn't choose to put myself through that again, but I also
Yeah,
I learned so much, so that I am
that's
that only because I sense that it's really important to explore and to know, you don't know otherwise.
right. No, I have the same feeling about this retreat. I definitely learned a lot. And yeah. I also I also thought I might want to get a t-shirt that says STFU and let me meditate. Anyway.
That's a good yogi thought right there.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that that I think it's helpful to hear too. I mean, this is part of what we have really feel good about in the last years as we've kind of taught more and more online is kind of just what you're saying is the sense that people have learned how to be more independent as yogis in an intensive retreat, and there's something wonderful. I mean, of course, being on retreat in person with people and a sangha and a quiet hall full of yogis is like amazing, and um, this sense of people feeling more confident. It's like this transition. Not that you have to transition into just going to sit alone, but that people who do want to sit alone and have more sort of self retreat, that the online stuff is sort of like it's a good terrain for exploring that. How do we manage a schedule on our own, or there's a sort of the shared schedule on Zoom, but then there's a lot of time apart. And then I think, yeah, like you said, that yes, sometimes the finding a space that you can actually have a retreat in is not always home or your apartment or your house or whatever, and so that has can be obviously a difficult thing. And like you said, some people have gone and rented places or found another place they can stay for some period of time, or
Yeah, that's what I
their
was
their
thinking.
partner goes off or whatever.
Yeah.
The
That's
arrangements are
yeah.
made, even within a home. And it is
Yeah.
interesting also to see the kind of range of agreements and sort of ways people are negotiating their home life and relationships in the context of retreat as well. So yeah, something to keep exploring.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to do that. The first time I did just the weekend retreat with y'all, my partner just happened to be out of town, so it worked out beautifully. And he's very supportive too. So I think we could probably manage. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely exploring
Yeah,
possibilities. Yeah.
cool.
Mm,
Thanks, Layla.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Pat.
I just wanted to say, Michelle, I know the teacher you're talking about. She was my first teacher. And I was able to sit with her for 2 years, well, 2.5 years, in 3, 4 long retreats. And I learned a lot. She was shaming. She did do shaming as it was her way of teaching. And for some reason, I didn't get triggered. I, she just didn't trigger me. But her personality was difficult. And the constant teaching, I learned 2 really wonderful things. One was eating meditation, because she sat with us while we ate and instructed us on how to pay attention to what we were. And this whole thing about eating just opened up for me. And
Continuous guidance, even through, you never were away from that. It was constant, except if
constant, and she injected herself under your skin, to
yeah.
be
Yep.
itchy so that you would be paying attention. And it was so useful. And then when I was done,
Mhm.
and I found you.
Well, that's great. I mean, that was she was one of a kind.
She was one of a kind.
Yeah.
A German kind.
Yeah. She was a queen from another era, darling, darling.
Yeah. You said that you loved her a lot. I didn't. I didn't love her. I respected her.
I
She
took
was,
take care of her. I took care of the teacher. So when you got to see her and
yeah,
understood a little bit more about her background,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I could, I
yeah,
could, I could see it. I could see what happened before, and that caused the abusive nature. But no one else saw. I mean, people would just go with it, like be her. Amazing. It was amazing.
it was really great, great teaching.
Yeah,
She was very wise.
wise.
She was very wise.
Not about herself, but really understanding about the practice. Really understood how to see clearly.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat. Hmm. Hmm.
Hey there, Harry. Oh,
First,
there we go.
this isn't a question. It's more like I don't know if it's a testimonial or what, but there's been an awful lot of dukkha lately in friends that are. A friend lost 40 pounds. They don't know why. Another one had oral surgery. A big time, the mandible, and on and on. Rolfer Broker has a problem with her back, and on and on and on. And with the aging process, this happens statistically more frequently around. And so I woke up and I was like overwhelmed, especially with my best friend. They don't know why he lost 50 pounds in 3 months, and so I was pretty overwhelmed. And last week I was a friend of mine who had done a lot of Goenka work back in the day. Who sat with a Goenka in wherever it was, India, I guess, and he was saying, when I sit now, I just get so frustrated, and I hate this thing, and I said, I said, well, just, what they say, just note the frustration. I note I'm overwhelmed and everything like this. And he said, I don't, for some reason, he said, I hadn't thought of that. And I said, yeah, it's a good thing if I can take that advice for myself. So this morning I woke up. This is a lot of sad news, a lot of good news too, but sad news. And I sat for maybe 20 minutes, half hour, not much. And but I was noting this overwhelm, noting this sadness, noting this fear, because it touches on my own mortality too, and on and on. And here it is, 6 hours later, and it's all still there. I mean, he didn't put on 50 pounds. I hope he did, but he didn't put on 50 pounds in the last hours. It's all still there, but it's all, okay is not the right word. So what I'm saying is noticing the anicca, noticing how things change. It's just fascinating to me how one can be so despondent almost, and then not. And I just the practice has really helped me see that things change, and also see how to deal with these overwhelmed states when they do arise, and I guess make progress towards a kind of equanimity. So I just wanted to, I did have a question, but I just wanted to say that another hosanna for the practice, I guess.
Like when you get to a certain age through life, you get through and you're 3 years old, 4 years old, and there's a certain amount of anicca, dukkha, and anatta there, but all through life you get these places where maybe midlife you're taking care of the old and young and you're getting older, right? You notice aging and some people dying, but by the time you're really getting old, you have to face a lot more of that overwhelm you're describing, Harry. I think it's amazing. It's like, you know, it's a lot of dukkha people that are going through, and it's you described it beautiful. You described it beautifully because you have to let it wash through. It's like with so much compassion and wisdom, you can keep developing so much wisdom and compassion, right? All the Brahma Viharas, all the Vipassana practice. It's such a ripeness for more development. In fact, I think it's amazing. And I think it's an amazing time of life to you have to kind of step on the gas with it because they keep getting higher.
It's not it's not gonna get better either. Your own body's gonna decay. You're gonna lose more friends. I mean, blah blah blah. Kathy's grandma was 102, and she said, "I lost all my friends. I'm here alone." The only thing that kept her going was running around with little grandkids and great grandkids. But yeah, it's like you think you've seen sickness, old age, and death. Wait, it's it's life is a hoot.
Well, it's every day. Every day it's a new one within your body or outside your body. It's amazing. Yeah, no, it's really it's just so powerful. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard to say more than you did, Harry, because it's very pure and clear, and the particular sense that you said of like, how is it? I mean, it is this like the part of the miracle of the practice is like, how is it that nothing has changed? Of course, everything has changed in a momentary way, but 6 hours later, conditions are still pretty similar to how they were 6 hours ago, and yet your whole orientation is really different, right? The mind has shifted from one that is, constrained and worried and stressed and anxious to one that is more like there's that sort of part of equanimity that is also kind of a resignation to just the truth of how things are, but that also is like it's not a depressive resignation, right? It is like a hey, this is how things are, and I mean, part of I think what comes through what you're saying too is like, and there's also a place for something that's real compassion for yourself, for your friend, for everyone of like, this is hard, right? It's not a denial of how hard it is or denial of the suffering of it all. And your framing of it it's very beautiful, very clear, right? Of like, that it is so amazing that through just noting what's happening, you come to this a really transformed relationship with dukkha.
A noting and also a great deal of karuna. I use that all the time. May I be free of suffering. I mean, you don't have to look very far. Anywhere. May the world be free of suffering. It's such a powerful Brahma Vihara for me, and that in combination with the noting, which the mindfulness of it, stuff works. I mean, life is not easy, but yeah.
Really glad you said this, very powerful. You know, the
Yeah.
Buddha said it, the four heavenly messengers,
Yeah.
he said it, but you start to really feel like you're breathing in and out with the four heavenly messengers instead of like, you know, yeah, right. You know what I mean? It becomes so integrated in everything. It's really superb. It's superb.
Thanks, Harry. Mm.
Mm.
Well, maybe that is a good ending for today. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, holding up our portion of the Sangha. Really wonderful to be together. And we hope you have a good week. And hopefully, I won't be here next Sunday. Michelle will be here. Then I'll be back the following one. So behave, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Yeah, lots of metta.